Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They have a Week 5 offer every football fan should jump on. New customers that use the code PHNX to sign up can bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. The last 0-0 tie in the NFL was back in 1943, so I would say this one is a no-brainer. Johnny, Derek, guys, how's it going? Derek, I love the setup you got going on there.
Thank you. Thank you. I am a big child, so of course I have my video games and all my toys behind me. But yeah, for sure.
That's better than being in Shane's actual childhood bedroom when we do the bet show.
Okay. That's
see some of his junior high and high school trophies.
Okay. Yeah, right. I put this together as an adult.
That's a man's room.
That's a man's room. It's a man's room. Yeah.
That's right.
Wait a second. Okay, so Shane does it. So he still lives at home then, and he does it from
Yes, I'm not trying to out him. I mean, he's out of himself.
Funny.
No, that's
fine.
He'll
bring on his trophies and show us his trophies and his medals and his twin bed and all that good stuff.
Never change, Shane.
I
appreciate that. All right, well, a lot of good stuff came out of today's Cardinals media availability. There was one bite that fans seem to resonate with the most. So I'll go ahead and play it for you guys, and we'll start there.
I mean, I'm used to winning. That's what it is. This is not a new feeling for me. It feels right. It feels normal. And to be back, in a position where we go into each and every game confident that we will come out victorious. I mean, it's a great feeling for sure.
Kyler Murray is used to winning. Cardinals off to a 4-0 start, and he is not shy about the fact that, he has a history of being a winner.
First of all, can I wear my hat like Kyler does, like this? Do I look the same?
Johnny, you look fantastic.
I'm going to say no. You're not as cool as Kyler, but
I am not.
You do pull it off, though. Yeah, let's rock it.
Yeah. I'm like, he's got a black hat on, just like we do. Can't see the DraftKings logo, but
you have to.
It is what it is. Yeah, none of us look as cool as Kyler, but we're trying.
We would like to emulate him in every way possible, and the Cardinals are emulating his winning mentality. I think if you remember at the end of last year how dejected he was because he's used to losing. Didn't lose a high school game as a starter. He started since his sophomore year in Texas high school football. A lot of people consider him the greatest Texas quarterback or high school quarterback of all time. And then he went to Oklahoma, lost 2 games en route to Heisman Trophy and not the BCS, but the College Football Final Four. He comes to Arizona, and he loses a lot of games in his first 2 years. And not only that, the way they finished last year down the stretch, right, going, I think, 2-6 down the stretch in the second half of the season, simply being outclassed in their own division. And I'm sure Kyler went into a lot of those games. It was just we're better than these teams. We have better personnel. I'm better than the opposing quarterback. And yet, for whatever reason, we consistently come in on the wrong side at the end of the game. And so it's something he's used to. And to change a culture as a number 1 overall pick, I've consistently said it's very different than what Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes had to endure. They went into winning franchises with winning head coaches, both of whom had been to Super Bowls before. Kyler Murray was drafted, and we love our Cardinals, in chaos and dysfunction. They had a new head coach. They had a GM on the hot seat. So he's had to lift this franchise up, and hopefully now a lot of these young players, the Chase Edmonds, the Rondell Moores, the Byron Murphys of the world, emulate his winning mentality.
Not to mention the fact that he also was replacing a quarterback that the Cardinals had just drafted, and that wasn't adding anything positive to the situation because there was a lot of doubt and there was a lot of questioning if they should waste that, go with this guy after and basically waste their pick of Josh Rosen. And obviously it turns out to be a very smart move. As an Arizona sports fan, I cannot relate to this mentality that Kyler Murray has of nothing but winning, especially covering the Arizona Diamondbacks as my main gig. I will say that I understand where he's coming from, though. I can see how somebody like him, who has been as talented as he is, has influenced the teams that he's been on his entire career. He at times has been, this electric player ever since he was a kid, and probably has been the driving force behind most of his teams having success and winning. Now at the NFL level, it takes the personnel. And what we've seen that's changed over the last 2 years is the personnel that they've put around him, especially this season. I've talked about it a couple of times on the other shows, but even Matt Prater and what he brings to this team and his ability to consistently hit field goals at the distance that he does has changed the complexity of this team. The ability to just put up 3 points here, there, when drives are stopped is completely different than what they, where they were at the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, I remember Kyler visibly, you could tell how just ticked off, and ticked off was an understatement with some of the results of the games last year. He had enough. And so, that's just his personality. He hates losing probably more than he hates winning. He's that kind of guy. And it feels good to see him, lighten up and, be a little more confident, and the entire team be confident around him too. And, I feel like you can't talk about Kyler with success and the way that he has improved and changed and grown as a human being and a professional without, putting Cliff in that same breath. And I thought it was interesting. I don't have the clip, but Isaiah Simmons said today that, basically, when, and we know because the Urban Meyer stuff's going on too. Yeah. When a locker room respects and is bought in on their coach and is bought in on their scheme and what they're doing. And he said, you can just tell, we're all in on Cliff. And I don't know if that was the case in year one.
Well, I will give Kingsbury immense credit. I've said consistently, even if this year hadn't gotten off to the strong start it had and they had to make a change, God forbid, at the end of the season, that he has not been a failure of a head coach. Their first year, they were very competitive, especially as opposed to what we saw in 2018, unfortunately, with Steve Wilkes and company. And you could argue a lot of that was Kyler Murray. But I think, his game plans have gotten consistently better. We saw that culmination process, take over on Sunday, beating his friend and mentor, Sean McVay, in the process. So I just think that there's a misconception with this guy from a national perspective, a national narrative, that he's a party guy. He's always got his shirt off. He's with, beautiful people.
His shirt off?
Yeah, because he's at, poolside, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley.
I'm missing those photos. I've never seen a photo of Cliff with the shirt off.
She's looked.
Okay, well, I have to pull photos.
No, I've definitely not looked. I'm sure I would have found them very easily. Apparently, they're out there.
They are. And so that's public perception. In reality, he's the son of a military man. He's grinded at the collegiate level. One of two things was going to happen if he had not joined the Cardinals. He was lined up to be USC's offensive coordinator and likely would have been their next head coach, or he would have been Sean McVay's, quarterback coach and eventually gotten an OC job. And when the Cardinals opted to hire him, they were hedging their bet. And right now, that looks like a pretty wise investment. So I totally agree with you, Chierstin, especially what we see from him at press conferences, how relaxed he is. He feels comfortable with who he is and his game plan and his players because he knows that his players have his back. Sometimes we don't allow, just like with players, coaches to grow into, who they're going to become.
Yeah.
He was not a finished product, just like Kyler Murray was in year one. But unfairly in the NFC West, when you're coaching against the likes of Pete Carroll and Sean McVay and to a lesser extent Kyle Shanahan, people rush to judgment, and he was an easy target. And now I think he's just more sure of himself, and that's a good place to be for Cliff.
I find it interesting with football historically that young coaches have always been the ones to change the game and be successful. And it's that ability to adapt and grow in their process instead of being stuck in their ways if you're a more seasoned coach, right? I think with Kingsbury, he gets that. He doesn't get that credit for growing with this team. People still think of him as being a college coach. They think of the air raid offense, and that has not been what this team has been about.
No.
One thing I've been completely amazed by, especially in this win against the Rams, and I brought this up on the postgame show, was it wasn't a crazy offense. It was kind of a more conventional offense. I mean, I know Kyler ran at times. I know there were some long downfield plays, but nothing that like was a trick play or anything like that. They have grown to just be a well-coached team that really has a diverse scheme, when it comes to play calling.
To your point there, can we just admit they just have better players now, and so they're better suited to his scheme and to score points? They were a top 10 offense last year, but because of how they finished, people were like, this is a gimmick offense, it's a joke. I just think he just was waiting for them to add a Rondell Moore and an A.J. Green and some better protection up front with Rodney Hudson. So God forbid a guy improves when you give him better players, as opposed to year one to now. They've gotten better every year in every facet.
And
I will say this. I don't think that it was unfair. Any sort of initial reaction to the Cliff Kingsbury hire, I think it was fair because you see that in any industry. I mean, sure. I felt that way when they said Derek was joining PH. No, I'm kidding.
How dare you?
Who the hell is this guy? Now he's on our show.
Yeah, yep. I'm going to call myself the mayor over here soon enough. It's going to be really ugly. And it is what it is.
No, but you get that in any field. If somebody were to come in that didn't have experience at a certain level and was given an opportunity that a very small percent of coaches make it to the National Football League and become an actual head coach. And so, the amount of people who work their butts off their entire careers and don't even come close to having that kind of opportunity. And then all of a sudden this guy, we all know his story. I don't need to repeat it, but, getting fired and whatever. Now he lands as a head coach in the NFL. I mean, anything that initially came, it was up to Cliff to allow his coaching and the results to speak for themselves, but he was going to get that no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? It's looking like a pretty wise move by Michael Bidwell and company. Right now, he's got a better winning percentage than the coach he's going to face this Sunday in Kyle Shanahan. I mean, who would have thought through 2.5, not almost 2.5 seasons, that he would be considered in that same realm as Kyle Shanahan, who's having, by the way, not a great start to his 5th year in the NFL.
All right, so let's move on. Another storyline heading into this season and then through the first 4 weeks has been Zaven Collins. Initially, we all thought that he was the guy. He was the Mike Backer. We weren't really going to see Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks didn't have the opportunity to fight for the starting job, and that hasn't been the case. So Isaiah Simmons, he was in a somewhat similar position last year where he was drafted and was, not really getting playing time like he wanted to. And so here's what he had to say about, what his conversations have been like with Zaven.
He played like the whole. I mean, I talk to him every week just to know. I just want to see where his headspace is at. Just because I know how it feels to be in that position. I told him last year, just as far as you've gone along, you played a lot more than I played up to this point. So don't get down on yourself. Don't think that it's not that the coaches don't believe in you, not that we don't believe in you. Just some way. Sometimes that's just how the cards fall. Just with certain packages we're running with their personnels. It's nothing personal against us not thinking he can get the job done or somebody else could do it better than him. Sometimes, we can't control what personnel other teams run. So sometimes things just happen like that. But, it's a week-to-week thing. I know his snap count was down a little bit. But, this week it could be completely different to where he plays the whole game. Everything's just a week-to-week thing.
So my first reaction to that is, you've got a guy like Jordan Hicks who has been praised heavily for the way that he not only handled the entire situation, but has also poured into Zaven. You've got a guy like Isaiah who's still young and very relatable in terms of he's still trying to figure out the league and just now finding true success in his second year. Zaven Collins has a lot of guys that are fantastic mentors to help him not only, learn the game, but deal with the other stuff that comes along with being in the National Football League.
Well, I can appreciate that. I'm going to just give my opinion, which I think is Vance Joseph got cold feet. I think that with that position, he is very protective of that. You're calling the defense. He got cold feet last year. He pulled Isaiah Simmons too early. Here you've got Zaven Collins, who's a much more finished product than Isaiah Simmons was. Started the entire offseason. Week 1, he was told on that Monday before, Jordan Hicks is the starter. Even though you watch the graphics on Fox NFL Sunday, it still shows Zaven Collins as the starter. So I just think at the end of the day, he'll play Marco Wilson as a rookie. He'll play Byron Murphy as a rookie. He'll play the 2 fourth-round defensive tackles last year as rookies. Cliff's playing Rondell Moore. Kyler Murray started. They are not against starting rookie players on either side of the ball. But there's something with Vance, with that inside linebacker who calls the defense. It's pearl clutching a little bit where he just can't give that up. And he will not allow, based on where Zaven or Isaiah was, to work through their mistakes. Where I will say he's getting a pass. They're winning, and the defense right now is 9th in total points allowed. I think that if they were struggling, a la like the beginning of last year defensively, I think there'd be more heat. But right now it's stabilized, and the defense is playing well, so there's not a lot of noise about it.
Do you think that's a reflection more of his inability to know all of the defensive schemes and be able to call them, or just identify what the offense is doing and make a decision on field about?
Historically, inside linebacker is one of the easiest positions to translate to in the NFL. Now, that does not mean that you do not have a couple weeks to begin your NFL career early in the season with some hiccups, with some rookie growing pains. The problem with Vance is he does now not allow that to happen, even if it means risking subpar play with somebody who's less athletic right now in Jordan Hicks. He would rather stabilize it and minimize the mistakes. What you're going to get with Zaven, just like Isaiah, you may give up a big play, but then the next series they may force a fumble or intercept a pass because their athletic ability is on par with that. But sure, Jordan's done that at the beginning of the season too, so I can't rip him.
Okay, so what's then the dynamic like? And maybe Steve Keim has like zero ego with it. I don't know, but let's just say what you're saying, Johnny, is accurate. How is that conversation going with Steve Keim, who now says, listen, I already named on draft day Zaven Collins the starter. He's our guy. He's who I wanted. He looked great in the preseason.
He did.
And now we're going back on all of this. I think he's ready. How is that even conversation happening?
I have no idea. He must have some clout in the organization to be able to say that. Now, Steve Keim recruited Vance Joseph to be the defensive coordinator. He and Cliff had no pre-existing relationship. So Steve and Vance must be on even footing and see eye to eye on this. I do think Zaven's going to play more. Let me say that. But, I mean, you watch the week 1 performance the defense had against Derrick Henry. I'm sure that bought him some time. They suffered a setback against Dalvin Cook, but then I thought rebounded nicely the last 2 weeks. So, I think I will agree with Isaiah to some extent that certain packages might dictate it. But I'm going to tell you right now, like, there's no better time than to play him on Sunday, given what the Niners want to do and ram the football down your throat. But what we also saw last year, Kyle Shanahan manipulate Isaiah Simmons game 1 and expose him, and there was a quick hook. So people who think we're going to see Zaven Collins this Sunday, it's not going to happen. I would think, just like with Simmons last year, as the season goes on, he's going to play 30-40% of the snaps. He will not be a full-time starter as long as Jordan Hicks is healthy until 2022.
I have zero problem with that. And because I also, if you want to just compare the situation to the Isaiah Simmons situation, I don't look at Isaiah Simmons and think, man, if only he had played a little more last year. I mean, I think he developed nicely regardless. And obviously he got burned early in the season in Vance. Johnny, you and I see differently, I think, in terms of like what Vance is doing in this situation. But I mean, I gotta go with, I have a little more trust in just believing what he says in these situations. And, what he was saying all of last year was he's just not ready. And so I believe that if, Isaiah had been ready, or if Zaven is ready at this moment to be put in that position, and he's the best guy to be put in that position at this moment, that he would be out there. So that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, have no other, information or people whispering in my ear, but that's my thought.
I think Jordan looks better than he did last year. And so they're in good shape right now. They've certainly got depth at the position for the first time in a while. I think what was frustrating last year is Jordan did not look good. And you had this unicorn sitting on the bench that the team pubbed up. And when he played, he looked good. Got interceptions, forced fumbles, sacked the quarterback. It's much less frustrating this year. So absolutely. They want to take their time. They're pushing all the right buttons right now. I have no problem with it.
And I also think that the success of this team right now makes it a little bit harder, right, for them to move on, because right now it's kind of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And if they're finding success right now with Hicks, I think if they continue to have success, it's going to make it that much harder for Collins to get that playing time.
Well, some news around the league. Cornerback Stefan Gilmore heading to the Panthers. And Johnny, you feel like there's a clear reason why the Cardinals didn't go after him. And a lot of that just has to do with the faith that they have in what they have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I got pushed back. I posted something on Twitter today because they're excited about the development. They're two young corners, and Marco Wilson and Byron Murphy. And Robert Alford is, knock on wood, healthy at the recording of this podcast. But you could always have depth. But Stefan Gilmore is a free agent to be. He wants $15 million. Now he's going to Carolina. We'll see. Their secondary is in much more greater need of an established corner. Right now, I could name two or three other corners that are playing better than Byron Murphy. So really, in the grand scheme of things, all that would be a depth signing. So while I wouldn't discredit them from potentially adding a corner down the line, I think it'll be a lesser name, especially after what we saw with Quentin Dunbar, who couldn't make it, a calendar month with this team. So people can't get hurt. Everybody's got to stay healthy. But you can also see that their two safeties are so ball savvy. Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker can both play corner in a pinch. It's not a perfect will, but then you could kick Simmons back to strong safety and you're in good shape. You've got a lot of interchangeable parts. So long story short, everybody loved that hypothetical trades in the offseason. Stefan Gilmore to Arizona, Chandler Jones back to New England. Crazy stuff like that never transpired, and the dude got sent out of town for a 6th-round pick next year. That probably tells you what kind of player he is right now.
Last bigger storyline to come out of practice today, offensive lineman Max Garcia, who stepped in, made his first start as a Cardinal on Sunday, and really was important with the injuries that they've had on the offensive line. He was injured a couple of years ago and just hasn't really been the same player since. So making that start was a huge deal to him. And he also talked about how he had tweeted out after the game, basically how he thought several times about just hanging it up and walking away from the game. And so he was asked about that today. And I thought his answer as to what kept him around and what motivates him and how he kind of views his role now was really impressive. So here's what he had to say.
Those thoughts really crept in earlier this year, kind of like in January, February. I actually had COVID, and I was just out of it. I didn't want to do anything. Every time I even thought about working out, I just didn't have any motivation to do it. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I was just man, I don't really want to, I'm not sure if I want to continue playing. And I had talked to a lot of my friends about it. And they're just man, if that's what you feel, then you do that. I always had, I set a goal. I was man, if I could at least play 6 years in the league, let me do that. And at that time I was 6 years in, but something did change. I just had a new mindset, especially when we came back, for OTAs, and I was here most of the time, and I was training with Josh Miles and Josh Jones, and I was just man, these young guys, they look up to me, and I was man, I can continue to be, a positive influence. I can still have an impact even if I'm not, on the field. And that's kind of the approach that I've had these last, 3 years not playing is I can still, motivate. I can still coach, and I can still, be enthusiastic and, just show people that you can love the game, even if you're not a star player. So yeah, that's kind of what changed, just like realizing, my value.
Give me like 10 more guys like Max Garcia, please.
Yeah. That guy went through a lot. And I mean, again, you do evaluate your life and you evaluate your health and all sorts of stuff in situations like that. It's just incredible to see, that kind of dedication and for someone to turn things around when it seemed so bleak,
Yeah, he's a guy that, I admire. Was banged up last year, was banged up coming into camp, and now he's got an opportunity to stick on the offensive line, certainly as the sixth lineman.
Yeah, and the fact that he felt an obligation to set a good example and be a leader for the younger guys on the line. And, a guy like Josh Jones can certainly use it. I think that's amazing. I don't know how often you get that in football, guys who are just like, who show up and say, all right, I'm not the same guy. I've been battling injuries. I'm not really playing as much, but I see these other younger guys looking up to me. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to help them. I mean, come on. I love that.
It's great. It's a great story.
Yeah, go ahead, Derek.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like you said, we don't see it enough. It's just such a big part of sports, in any sport, bringing on a guy that can be willing to put himself a little bit, or put the team, before himself, and especially teach younger guys, but also end up being a valuable part of the team still, right? I mean, it's not like he hasn't been a big part of this line. It's just that willingness to come back and feel like you have an obligation to, help the team and help younger players flourish.
Totally agree.
So I'm checking out the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now to make sure that I have the latest line on the Niners-Cardinals game. Cardinals are 5.5-point favorites, which I think is reasonable, right, Johnny?
Yeah. I think that's right where the line should be. This is a team that still has a lot of talent. Cardinals are playing better football. Niners, by all accounts, are going to start a rookie. And Kyle Shanahan came into this building Week 16 last year and beat him up with C.J. Beathard. So I would hope that they're prepared for really the Niners' best effort, because if they lose, that's their third straight loss, and they're at the basement of this division when a lot of people thought they'd be the favorites. So I would say 5.5, 6 is pretty fair, especially when you consider Cardinals have consistently beat their opponents this year by double digits outside of Minnesota. And coincidentally, that was their only other home game.
Just a reminder, new customers that sign up for the DraftKings Sportsbook app can bet $1 on any NFL game, including the Cardinals game this weekend, and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. So pretty much a guarantee there. A great deal that DraftKings has going on right now. And as always, it's 21 and over, Arizona only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And I want to tell you guys about our new promotion that we have going on, our new deal for members. It is 20% off any of our PHNX shirts up on PHNXlocker.com. You don't have to be a member to buy any of our awesome shirts, but members always get a weekly deal discount on all the shirts that are up there. And Johnny, we talk about it all the time. Members really do get the best access to everything that we do here at PHNX. So go sign up, go PHNX.com. All right. So Johnny, you mentioned it, the quarterback situation with the 49ers. So we actually don't really know who is going to be the starting quarterback, because Jimmy Garoppolo, made a comment about, he was going to be out. And then now it's maybe the injury is maybe not as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I still think we're going to see Trey Lance. When Jimmy Garoppolo comes out, he's like, I'm going to be out a couple weeks. And then his coach is like, well, he might play this weekend. That tells me that they're trying to keep up any kind of competitive advantage that they can have, so the Cardinals aren't exclusively preparing for Trey Lance. But, I mean, as much as I would love to see Jimmy G play in this game and throw multiple picks and be embarrassed in front of the Red Sea, I think it'll be Trey Lance and his first start since his last collegiate start, which was like almost 2 years ago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they feel like they've got a little bit of a wild card. Tua came into the stadium last year in one of his first starts and embarrassed this defense. So people who think that this is a layup game, I just think that if you know what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, it's going to be gimmick, crap, boots, play action, RPOs. The Cardinals are like bottom third in the NFL in the run defense, and that's what the Niners want to do. Now they got a bunch of spare parts at running back. The rookie's not ready. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's been adamant that Trey Lance is their number 2, but I feel like they're going to come in this game and throw the kitchen sink at Vance Joseph, and they better be prepared because, again, outside of what's going on at quarterback, I mean, assuming Trent Williams plays, they've got a plus offensive line. They've got the leading receiver in the NFL right now in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Sherfield, who knows this offense well, that's now in San Francisco. To me, the Cardinals, I do not think will take this game for granted, but for the fan base that is overly confident, this is still a very capable Niner team.
This is terrifying to me, Johnny, and it's only because the Cardinals have historically had problems with guys that have made their debut against them, especially 100%. When there's no tape on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember Jalen Hurts killed us in one game. I just remember historically, like even going back to Colin Kaepernick and such, right? So it's always been a thing that as a fan of watching this team, I'm always terrified of seeing how they handle these young guys because they always seem to surprise them. It always seems like a game that you say, well, hey, the Cardinals defense should handle this young quarterback coming in and should embarrass him, and it ends up going the other way. I am worried about the run defense, especially. I still don't really understand what's going on with this defensive line and the linebackers. It's not even just trickery. It's just at times, especially against the Rams, even though they held the Rams on rushing yards, they were still just running it right down the middle and having way too much success at that, getting 8-9 yards, first downs on just power runs up the middle. So I don't understand because it doesn't seem like this defensive line should be being overpowered like they are at times,
Yeah, they're average too many positions up front. And that's not a knock on Corey Peters and J.J. Watt and the guys that they've drafted. But, we watch Kyler Murray and Byron Murphy, 2019 first and second round picks flourish. The first pick of the third round that year was a player by the name of Zach Allen. And he was, all-American defensive end, defensive tackle from Boston College. He's been very underwhelming. He has not been the player they thought. They've whiffed on free agent defensive linemen a la Jordan Phillips, who we talk about all the time on this podcast because we don't know where the hell he is. They're paying J.J. Watt a lot of money. And to be fair, he is winning in his pass rush rate, but they're not clogging the hole. And typically it's easy to find defensive tackles that are good run defenders. The Cardinals just don't have any right now. So I think the logical decision is to at some point make a move, but you have to supplement it in the short term. To me, I think this is where you would benefit from Xavier Collins because he's 6'5", he's 260, he can run sideline to sideline, he can clog the line of scrimmage.
Johnny wants to see
but
Xavier.
They don't. But they're
so
not
bad.
So, but if they lose this game, I guarantee you, the fandom, the fan base, it will be because they cannot stop the run, and you have this shiny new toy that was the 16th overall pick last April that's not playing. Everybody can live with the warts as they continue to rack up victories. I'm not discrediting that. What I am saying is I know exactly what the Niners want to do in this game, and there's no reason that they're not going to be successful based on what we've seen for the first month of the season.
Johnny sounds like he was picking 17th in last year's draft, and he's really mad that he didn't get Collins on his personal team or as a toy on your shelf.
I was rooting for Devontae Smith. I was rooting for one of J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, and leading up to that draft, everything that I heard was they like this kid from Tulsa. And I'm like, well, I ain't take another inside linebacker.
You were hearing that leading up to the draft. Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah, we had on the show I used to do before I joined PHNX, which is fantastic. We had a couple draft experts on the show tell us that Xavier Collins to the Cardinals, they're infatuated with him. I'm like, that's smoke. They took him, and they're like, no, he's an inside backer. Because I'm like, oh, maybe they'll kick him outside. He'll rush the passer opposite Chandler Jones. Steve Keim, Dale Buchanan, Kevin Minter, Hassan Reddick, Isaiah Simmons, now Xavier Collins. He's addicted to first and second round inside linebackers. And yet Only one of them
God,
at the end of the day, and Simmons is I think going to be a star player. We'll see on Xavier.
Well, I think we've too quickly forgot that the Cardinals rendered Derrick Henry basically a non-factor in week 1. And ever since, they still have found a way to win. And I think, Frank was mentioning this after Sunday's game against the Rams, that it was sort of this bend, don't break mentality. Something had to give. So, they gave up some yards, but ultimately it didn't, it wasn't like they, had no answer at all. And the Rams ran it down their throat and the Cardinals lost the game because of it. So as long as it is still a bend, don't break mentality, and I'll be curious because, like you said, Johnny, the 49ers, their game plan is going to be to run it down the throat. So this will be, for me, the ultimate test of the Cardinals run defense. And that's the number one thing I'm looking forward, and I'm a little scared of to see, but I'm looking forward to see how they play, the defense plays in this game specifically for that reason. If they are still able to win and, it's not like a huge glaring, this is why they lost the game, I'm going to say I'm still not that worried about it.
Well, here's the difference between last year, especially when they played the Niners. The offense was not clicking. Robert Saleh shut this offense down. So it was magnified. So when the Niners did score, Cardinals couldn't do anything. Whereas now I think the teams that they're playing certainly feel the pressure to go shot for shot with Kyler Murray, which means throwing the football. And so as long as the offense can keep this up, I think teams are going to be more likely to say, we got to scrap the run, we got to throw the football.
Sorry about that. I was going to say what Chierstin said, I think is very true too, as far as the game plan against the Rams it felt like it was to stop the pass to the point where I think it disrupted Sean McVay enough that it led to that lack of success for them overall. Yes, they gave up those runs, but really their focus was the passing offense of the Rams and what they could do. And that even showed in the red zone when McVay didn't know what to do, even though he was able to get 5 yards at a time, rushing it straight down the middle. They still went to other plays when they were in the red zone to try to score touchdowns. It seemed like the Cardinals definitely knew what to expect out of them and game plan for it. If they can adapt and stop the run and completely render the 49ers offense useless in this game, then I will give them even more credit than I currently give them for being a well-coached team. And maybe Frank and I will go get those matching Cliff Kingsbury tattoos that we're talking about getting.
You're in on that too, Derek?
Oh, yeah, we're getting matching tattoos. That's for sure. I think we should get like a playing card, and it should be a king of maybe king of clubs. I don't know, but it should be Cliff, and that's going to be the tattoo. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever Frank wants to do.
Well, when you take a look at this matchup this weekend, I feel like it is also a game that's intimidating for reasons that the Niners are by far the more desperate team. Mm-hmm. They're in danger of losing their third straight game and really dropping completely out of the race. Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo, whether he plays or not, they've been, I keep wanting to say getting shit on. I'll just say it. I was trying to figure out a different way to say it.
He's not having a good season. Kyle Shanahan is having, by all accounts, a poor season. And what some people fail to recognize is he does not report to John Lynch, their general manager. Kyle Shanahan reports to Jed York, who owns the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has a 10-year contract with that franchise and got to handpick his quarterback. And so when you trade 3 first-round picks for a quarterback and subsequently don't start him to begin the year, and your quarterback stinks, and then you tell everybody, well, Trey Lance isn't ready, and you decided not to go with Mac Jones or Justin Fields, what does that say about you? If you're trying to win games right now, then by all accounts, going with a rookie wasn't the plan anyway. I think that franchise, I have respect for them. They came into the season with so much arrogance after last season being a sub 500 team, finishing last in this division. And I know players got hurt. Everybody has hurt players. Then coming into this season and thinking, well, we're Super Bowl contenders, but we also have the worst quarterback situation in the NFC West, and we can transition on the fly because once upon a time we did it with Alex Smith and Kaepernick. That is not how the NFL works. That's an outlier situation, and I think their Super Bowl run in 2019 was an outlier. They won it they got there with a running game and defense and a defensive coordinator that's gone and DeForest Buckner who's gone. To me, they're a shell of what they are. I still think Shanahan is a good play caller, but by all accounts, as the CEO of this franchise, reporting to Jed York, making all these personnel moves, they fumbled so many instances. I mean, they were going after Deshaun Watson. They wanted Deshaun Watson. I think it's scary to think about. He probably would have ended up there had the allegations not come out. So they pivoted and they sacrificed for this guy who played one AA football. And now they think, well, we're going to win the NFC West. You have by far the worst quarterback. It's quarterback league. So they have really good players. They have blue chip players, and their roster is very comparable to Arizona's, except for the most important position.
This game, though, in my opinion, is the difference between, all right, this season's, just going down the drain, or, okay, all right, we beat the Cardinals, huge win. There's still some life. I know it's early on to even make those comments, but, you already lost to the Seahawks. Now you lose to the Cardinals. You've lost 3 straight. I mean, it would be really hard. And then all the other stuff that they're dealing with the quarterback situation, injuries that everybody deals with, but they've certainly got them. And just a lot of noise right now. I just think that this is such a big game for the Niners. And so I think that, they're going to put up a fight.
Yep.
And
No
it's
doubt.
like the Cardinals we keep hearing it the last few weeks, especially Kyler. He said last year, I don't think we would have been able to win that. Last year, I don't think we would have been able to accomplish that, whether it's a goal line stand or whatever the case is. You consistently hear that out of Kyler Murray. And this is a game, if they're able to win it, you could also say this is a game that last year we weren't able to win.
100%.
Yep.
This
absolutely.
is Detroit last year. This is Carolina. This is New England. I do think there will be some retribution. And if I have an opportunity to ask Cliff on Sunday, I will. Did any of the motivation pertaining to this game and subsequent win come from last year? He already said they knocked them out of the playoffs. They missed the playoffs because they lost at home on prime time, Amazon Prime, to CJ Beathard when the Niners had nothing to play for. The Niners got kicked out in that game of San Francisco. They could not play football in the state of California because of the pandemic rules. So they had to come live in Arizona.
That's
and
right.
They had a bunch of B and C players, and they embarrassed the Cardinals. And so I hope Cliff and company are able to harness that, because I certainly haven't forgot about it. I know Chierstin hasn't.
So you're not supposed to, in traditional media, you're not supposed to show favoritism, emotion, bias, fandom, whatever you want to call it. But I'll have to tweet it out or something, because I still have the sportscast. I looked so pissed, and my words, I didn't hold back either. I actually watched it back today. You could see the anger. I this cold look on my face, and I was ripping them apart in the sportscast. I'll have to tweet it out or something. You guys.
We need to see that.
So when you were talking about local town council, you were pissed off about the Cardinal result. And
it reminds me in the press box at the D-backs game where I can't cheer or anything. So that part of me has died. But the only time I would actually get angry was when something dramatically changed my article in the 9th inning, and people would think I was actually getting mad about the team. The Diamondbacks were up and then they blew it in the 9th.
No, it's because you have to rewrite your article. It was already written.
I have so much tone to change in this. The entire tone is win. You know how hard it is to get a winning tone out of a losing article? It's all done. Stupid article now. So that's all I got mad about.
Well, I thought this was interesting. So Kyler Murray is the favorite to win league MVP. Cliff Kingsbury on the DraftKings Sportsbook app is actually third right now. Chargers head coach Brandon Staley plus 800, Sean McVay plus 1,000, and Kingsbury plus 1,200.
Let me tell you right now, looking at that, Vic Fangio is getting fired. Plus 1,400. That division is a nightmare. I feel for our DNVR brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I think that 3-0 start was a mirage. I think Vic Fangio is getting fired.
I'm just happy I took Kyler Murray at plus 1,000 for MVP now, because things are looking pretty good on that bet.
Cliff, man, Things change quickly in this league. Can he sustain it?
I just think that's interesting that he might, like, the odds would be like so different than Kyler's, because I feel like their success kind of goes hand in hand. But I don't know. I just found it interesting.
It's that giving credit, though, right? I mean, Kyler gets the credit right now. Everybody talks about how exciting he is, the plays he's making. The comparisons to Russell Wilson, but being better and more athletic, are kind of wild to me. But I mean, you could say they're pretty true. I will say the one thing I like about both of them is how mobile they are, but that they use their mobility to still be quarterbacks, right? But yeah, it really comes down to if Cliff gets that credit. And I'm not sure if anybody, if some people are willing to move past thinking he's still a college quarterback to give him that credit.
Most people coming into this season that were outside of this organization, this fan base, the Valley, viewed Cliff as an indictment on this franchise, and that Kyler Murray succeeded despite of him.
Yep.
We don't think that, and I think nationally now that narrative is starting to change a little bit. But it is 100% bona fide the reason that they've got a top 12 roster and they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the division, and they were picked dead last because of Cliff Kingsbury. Fair or not? And we talked about it, Chierstin, for weeks on end leading up to the season. Cliff got it together. They had an opportunity to really compete and surprise people, and that's exactly what's happened.
Well, if you want to get in on the betting, we hope you'll download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code PHNX when you sign up. As always, DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And the best thing about it, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Johnny, take it away.
Hey, you know what, Derek? I don't know if you've checked out my portrait here, but I've been utilizing Manscaped, manscaped.com, promo code PHNX. I got free shipping. I get 20% off site-wide. The Lawnmower 4.0. I mean, I know I've got this hat on, but I've tried to make this, as camera ready as possible for our viewers on Twitter in America, all across this nation, as I'm getting tailored up for our shows, our live streams. They also have this phenomenal body wash. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. My wife certainly likes it. That's at manscaped.com. Promo code PHNX. Free shipping site-wide, 20% off. Get to manscaped.com. Get tailored up so you can look like your boy here.
Looking slick, by the way. And you guys are so wholesome compared to the other degenerates on this network. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
We keep it wholesome here on the PHNX Cardinals podcast. As long as I'm the host, it will be a wholesome show. Okay.
Chierstin demands that I smell okay and that I'm put together. I am not allowed on the show.
I know. She was very complimentary of the way we all smelled the other day. So that warmed my heart. I was glad I didn't break any of her rules.
We're making her proud.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Derek, you got to get to the Mercury game that tips off at 7, right?
Yes, I have that to get on to, and I'm excited because our ladies are going to go on the NBA WNBA finals tonight, hopefully.
Well, we've got the Bird Gang Blitz mailbag to finish up with. So I'm going to give you an option here. A, we can quickly run through these, or B, we'll let you get out of here and Johnny and I can wrap up this last segment by ourselves.
I will take off. You guys handle the mail, and I know I'm not. Let's be honest. I'm not going to give any input here on any of this stuff. I'm just going to scream, "Go Cardinals!" They're awesome. They're going to go undefeated and all sorts of other ridiculous stuff. But
go get some reps on that bench press right there.
No, that's decorative. It's decorative. Don't even worry about it. That's not. That's why my stuff's hanging on it. But thank you guys for letting me be a part of it, and I look forward to coming back soon.
We'll have you back soon.
All right.
Mercury.
Go Mercury.
Go Mercury.
Okay, it's just us. We've got the Bird Gang Blitz mailbag, Johnny, and I think we've got 4 questions from our awesome viewers here. Okay, so first one is, when is Steve Keim going to get his flowers? He has gotten us Kyler, Buddha, Chandler, D-Hop, Simmons, Byron, Jalen T, J.J. Watt, Rodney Hudson, DJ Humphreys, Chase, Kirk, Rondell, Josh Jones, A.J. Green, and so on. He named half the roster in that one. Pretty pumped about it. But when you take a look at those names in that list, and that's why I made sure I read through his entire question. Obviously, it was more so wasn't really a serious question there, but he's given credit. When you take a look at that list and you read those names out loud, got to give Steve Keim some credit for sure.
So I've noticed a pattern. It's a little bit concerning. So Steve Keim, this is his 9th year as the Cardinal general manager. His first 3 years, 2013 to 2015, spot on with personnel acquisitions. Carson Palmer, John Brown, Tyrann Mathieu, DJ Humphries, Marcus Golden. And then he had a big-time dip from 2016 to 2018. That was Josh Rosen. That was Sam Bradford, Robert Kimdichie. And then in the last 3 years, Kyler Murray, Byron Murphy, all those great players that you just mentioned on there. So I'm hoping that we're not exiting another 3-year peak and they go on a 3-year downturn. But I'm with you. I think that things go the way that we think they're going. Steve Keim's going to get his flowers in the form of a fat contract extension. He and Cliff will be taken care of nicely. Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim are incredibly close. And I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated that he, for whatever reason, wasn't replaced after Steve Wilks, after Bruce Arians left. He's been within this organization for almost 30 years. He was here before he became GM. He worked his way up when Rod Graves was the general manager. He was hired from within. He is well respected amongst league circles. And his best attribute, we know this, Chierstin, is the acquisition of talent free agency. I mean, scoring the likes of Chandler Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, there are other franchises that are able to pull that off. And now what you're seeing is he's finally gotten back to basics in the draft. I mean, that 2019 draft, when you've got Kyler Murray and Byron Murphy as your first 2 picks, that's an A-plus draft. I don't care about the rest of the players. If you're finding 2 Pro Bowl players in a given draft, that's house money. So kudos to Steve Keim, and you know what he'll do mid-season. He'll make this team better. You cannot, his critics out there can fault him for a lot of things, but he is always aggressive, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, aggressive. And the biggest risk that he took was hiring Cliff and was drafting Kyler after Rosen. I mean, those two moves, that easily could have blown up in his face. And I'll never forget last year I was on I won't give a name, or even, I won't even give the city that it was, but it was Cardinals opponent. It was a radio show that was in their opponent's city. And so I was on the show last year, and like one of the first things they asked about was Josh Rosen and what happened. I was like, people are still talking about this, like nationally, like it's such a big deal nationally. I'm like, this is what you're talking about, really? And they're like, well, they wanted to know like what happened, and they were stuck on Josh Rosen. I'm like, Josh Rosen is on Miami's practice squad right now. Obviously, a lot of things went wrong with that one, but I think just the people just couldn't get past the fact that, you draft Josh Rosen, and a year later with your first number 1 overall pick, you get, another quarterback. So Steve Keim got a lot of flack for that locally and nationally. Took a chance on it, and it's starting to pay off. And then obviously all the other ones that you just named starting to pay off as well. So you mentioned it. You feel like it's up to Steve Keim right now to go out and get a defensive tackle at some point this season. He's able to do that. Kudos to him. That's going to put the Cardinals in a position to not only make the playoffs, but potentially make a deep run in the playoffs. So I got to give credit to him. It was a bold move. He's made a lot of bold moves.
He's a fun GM to follow. Like in the draft, they trade up. They're always active in free agency. Yeah. He takes a lot of swings. There are a lot of franchises in the NFL and in sports in general that play it safe. And the Cardinals, with him in charge, they've had some highs and they've had some lows. But right now, it looks like they're on the upswing because, in large part, the decisions he's making.
All right, next question. Does it concern you at all that the Cardinals' run defense has been the weak point and they're playing 2 back-to-back really good run offenses?
Yes. Yes, Machado, it does. Very concerning.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't give it. Did I give the other person credit for that? The first one was KS season 2021.
K1 season, yep.
Oh, K1 season?
K1 season, my guy, 2021.
Okay, K1 season. I think his actual @name and his name are 2 different things. But anyway, okay, all right. And then the other one was Machado.
Machado's great. Machado was at the Rams game last week, tweeting out photos at PHNX, giving the business to Rams fans. We love that.
Oh, that's the same guy. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
But yes, to answer your question, Machado, I'm very concerned, especially with Cleveland on the road in 2 weeks, with a much better roster and a better quarterback right now. But that's not to say they can't step up like they did in week 1. And I think that hopefully they'll prioritize it. I think there's something to be said especially last week, the Rams aren't a great running team. And so they put all their eggs in the basket of, okay, we're going to play 6 defensive backs because you're going to spread us out with Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, and of course Cooper Kupp and the tight end, and we'll give you the 3 to 5 yards per carry. They know what these next 2 weeks are going to look like. Play action, boots, especially with Baker Mayfield. Their offensive line is a plus O-line. So hopefully Vance is ready, and he typically makes nice halftime adjustments. I'm much more confident this week than next week at Cleveland, however.
I think we're really going to see what this defense is made of. It's in particular what they're able to do with the run defense on Sunday. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. And I said that earlier, not too concerned about it at the moment. I will be concerned for sure if it becomes a glaring issue this weekend. And we already know that that's what they're going to try and do is run the ball. So if we know that and they're game planning for it and, it becomes an issue, then we'll go from there. All right. Next question. Do you think Keim regrets naming Zaven Collins the starter to start the season? And what are the chances he'll make an impact this season? So that kind of goes back to, and that's from, well, I don't even know do you want to attempt that name, Johnny?
Tiburon. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
There we go. Might be wrong, but we tried our best. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, though, about I'm wondering how that conversation is playing out between Vance Joseph and Steve Keim, because he put himself on the line during draft day and the entire offseason camp. He stuck to that storyline that Zaven Collins was the guy. So he might regret it.
I don't know. Here's what I will say. I will give Keim a pass for drafting Zaven Collins for this year. This is a make or break season. And leading up to that draft, I was like, you got to get somebody at 16 that's going to play right away. You can't redshirt any more people. You got to win this year. Well, they're winning despite him not playing. That draft, that was the pandemic draft. That was the most accurate top 10 in recent memory. It was the most telegraphed draft because of the pandemic and everybody knew who the top players were. There were like no surprises. So when they got to pick 16, the board was picked clean. Zaven was by and large one of, if not the best player available. So yeah, they might have been able to trade down. They made a bounty in rounds 2 and in rounds 4 with Rodney Moore and Marco Wilson. Those guys are playing right now. So you're getting contributions in your draft class, just not your first round pick. Everyone knows Zaven Collins is going to play eventually and he'll be fine. But that's a good question. I would think that at some point this season, he'll have his Isaiah Simmons, interception play against Seattle in overtime. Something like that will happen. And who knows? I mean, knock on wood, if a guy gets injured, he's the next man up anyway. So you can never have too much depth. But right now they're going to ride this hot hand.
Yep, I agree. You said it perfectly. Last question. How can the run defense be fixed midseason? Getting gashed. Okay, so a lot of concerns about the run defense. And I mean, I would say for sure bringing in somebody else, but that's, easier said than done. Yeah.
They need to play better, and they need to have
do your job.
Yeah, they need to have one of their young defensive tackles step up, Rashad Lawrence, Leki Fotu. But the problem with that to me is like those were 4th round picks. Day 3 picks in the draft, those are lottery tickets. Like you get anything from them, that's house money. That's why what Marco Wilson's doing is fantastic. Zach Allen to me has to be better. JJ Watt, I mean, by all counts, I think could be playing better. And a lot of people think his sacks are going to come now in bunches because he has been so close. But as far as the run defense goes, you can go out and get a run stuffing defensive lineman for relatively cheap for a 6 or 7 throwaway pick. When a team is out of it, when a team is 5, 6, 7 games under 500, they're looking to shed money. They're looking to recoup assets. They're going to send a defensive tackle this way. So I think that's what ends up happening. But who knows? The Jordan Phillips thing, I get questions all the time. I'm sure you do too, Chierstin, about his status. I do not expect him to play this year. I just don't. I don't think he's going to be active. I think that there's something going on internally. It's, in my opinion, not an injury. Kingsbury is like, it's week to week. What's week to week?
It's not week to week.
His status? He's not going to play. So to me, it just signifies that that's a position next offseason they'll prioritize.
I hate not knowing that information. I just feel like
if there was an injury, they would say, okay, he's got a knee or he's got a hamstring, but you can't lie on the injury report. So they just put him on IR and they're just leaving him there. Dennis Garnett couldn't get back fast enough and they activated him. Jordan Phillips, who's making like $11 million, is MIA.
One quick note, Dennis Gardeck was a full go at practice today, so that's good.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And I refrain now from talking about the injury report on Wednesdays because it's too long of a list. And
people were freaking out today.
No, don't freak out. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Wait till Friday.
Yeah.
If that list doesn't change on Friday, okay, freak out. But I've learned my lesson about even touching the injury report on a Wednesday.
That's fair. Totally fair. Totally justified.
All right, Johnny. It was fun once again. See you on Friday.
See you on Friday. Bye, everybody.